Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 433 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. We're going to be live hacking on some Firefox stuff today. We're just going to see what we get done, what goes on. We're going to be hacking on Firefox. Let's get started. I'll start by sharing my screen. Hey, yeah, it's March 18th, 2026, episode 433. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I think I know what I'm going to do today. I think I know what I want to work on, but it could go sideways. It could go horribly wrong. The stream might fall over. My internet might just stop working. Who knows? Interruptions may abound. I might get pulled into some emergency. Anything could happen, and we're just going to deal with it as it comes. That's the first thing. The second thing, the agenda that we're looking at is going to be available to you in a different place depending on where you're watching the stream. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description for a link. If you're watching this on Amazilla, check out the details section over there. And if you're watching this on Twitch, it's down in the channel details. And I want to mention, first of all, that the agenda will update. If I make changes to it, like if I put an exclamation mark there and this little spinny spins, if you reload the agenda, you should get the most up-to-date version of it. I also wanted to mention there's an episode guide, and last week we spent a bit of time on the episode guide. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the episode guide today as well. There are a few more pull requests I want to try and get in before we call it a day there. So let's get started. There's no Keanu code today. There's no error code for 433. If you look it up, HTTP error code 433, I don't believe one exists. Let's see here. List of HTTP status codes. Yeah, big gap between 431 and 451, so we will not have any HTTP error codes, official ones anyways, until 451 rolls around. And then after that, it's like we don't hit anything until 500. So that might be the last Keanu code that we show for a while, or ever. Let's see. Oh, I want to show something else out, which off. Show something else off? Out? Show you something else. Check this out. One of my colleagues, Overholt, he landed this fairly recently. This is one of his first major patches to Firefox. He's in charge. He's like a VP here, and is in charge of large teams that do web platform stuff. And but he got a bee in his bonnet and wanted to work on a feature, and so I've been helping him out a little bit, and a part of his feature landed, and I want to show it off. And that is the ability to take the site that you're currently on and to share a QR code. So if you were to be on Mac OS and you've got a tab that you want to share with someone, or have it be on your mobile device, and you don't want to use send tab to device, or you don't have a Firefox account, or you want to send it to something that's not signed into your account, you can generate a QR code like that, and then you can scan it with your phone or another device with a camera, and that will be to this site that you're on. And you can also save the image to to the disk if you want to print it out. Maybe you want to paste it somewhere, or you can also copy it to the clipboard if you want to paste it into a chat or something. So those are all the options you have available to you. That is currently only enabled by default in Nightly on Mac OS. There's still work to do to make it work on Windows. Windows' sharing system is a lot different. Mac OS, you have these share menus. On Windows, you have a shared dialogue that is native, and it's proving to be a little more complicated to integrate properly with it. You have to write some native code to do that, and we're working our way through. But Mac OS is done, and then for Linux, we don't have the sharing menu at all available on Linux, so we're gonna have to figure out what we want to do there. Maybe this is the first foray into adding a sharing menu on Linux, is just share as a QR code. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to share. The second thing is, let's take a look at those pull requests. So if we go to the Joy of Coding episode guide here, we can see that we started to pull in the 2026 episodes. That's good. And that there are still a number of pull requests here. In fact, there are 2 pull requests. One is from Smurf D. It's episodes 426 to 431. And then an update docs from Danny Colin. We'll take a look at that as well. Let's start with the episodes first. So we've got episode 426. This is the same. I say this every time I start merging in things from the episode guide. I don't look too closely. I only care that the episode guide is useful, but that means that it's completely viewer driven. You know, like whatever you find useful, that should go into the episode guide. So you can send pull requests to the episode guide. I'll merge almost anything in if you think it's useful to whoever is watching the stream. Just make sure it's useful for people. And so really all I look at is make sure that the dates are correct and that the links and the subject looks right, the topics that I covered. So January 21st, 426, that looks correct. The links look right. We talked about Keanu codes. We were talking about the activation window stuff. That maybe I mentioned this last week. The activation window experiment is currently underway. We'll see how that's going. Probably in a week or two, we'll have some results. And I reviewed some patches. And I had a to-do. I filed a bug. I did file a bug. It turns out that there is no leak. I thought there was a leak. There is no leak. I thought there was. And sometimes the reason is undefined. I also noted. But not catastrophic. So that is that episode. Let's move on. January 28th, episode 427. Yeah, that looks right. There is no error code for 427, and then we landed some patch for 200.8221. I don't know what bug that was, what patch that was. Oh yeah, we fixed a search result for credit cards. We talked about another bug. We filed this bug. It turns out this has been fixed. If you look at the about dialog, it looks more like it used to before this bug. When we filed this bug, the gap was, I think, considerable, and I think it's more or less the way it was. It got closed anyways. The remaining gap is the same. The dialogues now look the same. There's nothing else obvious that we caused in space. The duplicate market is duplicate. Okay, so that was dealt with. Next episode, February 4th, 428. That looks right. Sections. I was talking about Sections. Hey, guess what? Sections is on by default in Canada now. If you're in Canada, you should hopefully be seeing Sections and Canadian content. Like, a lot of this looks American right now. Guardian's not Canadian. Popular Mechanics and NBC, that's not Canadian. But Canoe is Canadian. And what else? There's some other stuff I've seen. Canadian Geographic. What else is in here? CP24 and the Canadian Press. If I enabled other topics, maybe I'd get more different Canadian content. Like it's going to change over time. Like if I reload this. Oh yeah, I reloaded it, and this is from the Canadian Press, and this is from the Canadian Press. So that's interesting. So more Canadian content getting out there. I also am not seeing any chatter. I presume that people are able. I tested the bridge before and it seemed to be working. If you're in IRC, if you're in Twitch, do let me know if you're able to. If you're seeing me, I'll keep an eye on the chat. And I answered this question from a viewer. Okay. And then episode 429. That was this one, February 11th. Yep. Vertical tabs. We talked about vertical tabs and the hover state. There's an interesting bug I filed and discovered. There was maybe you've run into this as well. Let me show you in a let me build, but I'll show you in my normal build here. If you have a non-default zoom level of your dev tools, then when you approach the inspect button, notice that the vertical tabs came out before I'd reached the vertical tab strip. And if I go back to the default zoom level, it works as necessary, or it works as expected. It's only whenever you have a non-default zoom level that all of a sudden you cannot even access this inspect button because the vertical tab's open. So I filed a bug on that. Here, let me link to the bug. You might find it interesting. Zoom vertical zoom level of dev tools. Yeah. effect. Expand on hover rect for vertical tabs. So we can put that in here. A bug I filed about vertical tabs and DevTools zoom level. You might find that interesting. All right, so I filed that. We can close this. Yeah, I don't need that. And someone asked about testing. I answered a question about testing. All right. I am not seeing any chatter in the chat, so if you have, let me now open up the Twitch chat, just to make sure that there's not any background chatter going on that I am not aware of. That does always worry me, that there's background chatter that I'm not seeing. Can I pop out into its own thing? Sure. Okay. So, maybe there's no one watching. That's fine too. That is quite all right. But I've got the Twitch chat open just in case. Okay, and then episode 430. That was February 18th. Yep, that looks right. I left the stream running for too long. And we were talking about remote settings. We started introducing the remote renderer here, the stuff we've been working on. So that's good. February 25th, that was episode 431. Yeah. And I talked about a plan to use a specialized protocol handler, and I started to write out a plan. I did end up writing a patch for that specialized protocol handler, and that's something I'm hoping we can look at today. So I'm very happy with these episode guides. Let's add them in. Craig is watching, mostly listening. Thank you, Craig. I see that coming in through Matrix and was forwarded correctly to Twitch. So at least that direction's working. So we're going to go ahead and merge those changes in. Thank you, Smurf D. I'm also going to take a quick peek at this update docs from Danny Colan. Remove plan structure section in favor of the instructions in our contributing guide. Remove plan structure section on homepage since it's only useful for people contributing to the guide. Remove reference to watch people code since the live stream isn't advertised there anymore. Prettified a bit of our markdown files. Yeah, update. Yeah, okay. Install dependencies. Yeah, you file the past episodes on Airmo. So we've got some like nice link aliasing going on here. Handmade Hero. So this is interesting. I haven't followed Handmade Hero for a while, but I poked in and I don't think they ever finished their game. the whole like Molly Rocket Handmade Hero game. Like I think it's kind of like not been finished. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that game ever got finished that they were working on. No plan survives breakfast. Plan structure. Yeah, that's fine. And then Airmo. That's fine. And then README. Yeah. Yeah, okay. This all looks good. Yeah, I like it. Thank you. Thank you, Danny Colan. I'm going to merge that in. Thanks. And merge. Brilliant as usual. And with that, the episode guide is up to date. Okay, so that is what I wanted to do for the episode guide. Now I want to do some actual Firefox stuff. We had been working on this remote renderer thing for the past couple weeks, and I posted the patches up for review last week. And excuse me, some feedback came in. I haven't had time to look at that feedback. I'm going to be looking at it fresh with you right now, and we're going to sort of figure out what we want to do moving forward. So let's take a look at the patches in here and the feedback that we got. So there are 4 patches in the stack. I'm going to open them up all in background tabs. There we go. So this first one, oh, there's a Phabricator update in progress. So my colleague The Count asks, does this pref turn on the remote renderer? If so, should this have been if true remote settings-based renderer backend is enabled? Otherwise, this pref reads that if the renderer is on, it sets this pref to true. I also kind of feel this description is a bit vague. It's just kind of describing the pref name in more words. I'm down the person suggests something better, and I don't think this is a blocker. I mean, he's right. He's right. We can make this clearer. Okay, so let's start by rebasing my patches, which are these ones down here. We're going to rebase them on top of main. So rebase. Here, let me pump up the font so you can more clearly see what I'm doing. I'm going to go, whoopsie daisy. I'm going to go, I want these 4 patches. So I'm going to go JJ, rebase, and then I'm going to go, I want the, now you can do a range. Sometimes I'll go like LM ::, YYXS, but the other thing you can do is -B, YYXS. That's the, take everything from the base up to YYXS, and the base being LM, the first branch off of the common ancestor, and I'm going to set the destination to main at origin. Boom. Done. Is there a Joy of Coding episode 419 on YouTube? Asks Nerd Bloke. Let's see. Joy of Coding episode. Well, let's take a look at the episode guide. 419 would have been 419. It was on November 5th. The Joy of Coding. Joy of Coding 419. All right, let's go to YouTube and search directly. Joy of Coding episode 419. Maybe not. Let me pull up my my management, my videos. Pull up studio videos 419. .419 is not available. I don't know why. I uploaded it. I don't know why it's not available. It was uploaded. I'm going to go ahead and... Oh, it's private. Why did I do that? All right, publish. There. I've made it public. So episode 419, which should always have been public, should now be available. Let's see here. Let's link to the video link. Okay. Here it is. Here it is. I'm going to put a link in the chat. 419. So I guess I'll put, I made episode 419 available. Strangely was marked as private. I made it public. Probably just fat fingered it. Probably just made a human error. Should probably script more of this stuff. All right, let's keep going. So I have rebased my patches. If we take a look at, whoop, I got an alarm going off. I had rebased on top of main. Here they are, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I want to make this first change to the first patch, the pref. So JJ new LM. And we will take a look at the feedback again. We said it's in here. True if the remote settings based renderer backend is enabled. So he's correct. We can probably make this clearer. Set to true to enable the remote settings based renderer for new tab. Remote settings backed renderer for new tab. What's the other thing? The pref name in more words. So what do you say? Set to true to enable the remote settings backed renderer for new tab. See. What did I call the module? See. I think I called it like remote renderer. See remote renderer. Sysdon.js for more details. There we go. So hopefully that's clearer. We'll squash that in. Go ahead and mark that as addressed. Done. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Part 2. Do we want to do something in the error case now too, or is it not important? Previously on error, a new tab was still initialized. Not sure if that even mattered, but this feels like a change in behavior, but likely an edge case. Likely the previous behavior was fairly broken initialized state anyway, so maybe not being initialized is the right thing here. That's a good question. Let's see what happens if we throw in here before resuming new tab loads, and see what the behavior is. So let's create a new patch here, and we'll build. Shout out to the people in Toronto, like me, who are probably cold. Because it's colder than we thought. Colder than I thought it would be. I started to put my winter stuff away, and boy howdy, that was too early. I should not have done that. It's probably my fault that the snow showed up. My bad. Okay, just checking some alerts here. None of these things are important for now. Okay. Okay, so we're going to complete our artifact build. Wow, what's going on here? Craig writes, at least you weren't in Northern Ontario over the weekend. Were you, Craig? Were you in Northern Ontario? How cold was it up there? Are we talking like minus 30? Minus 40? How bad? And to be clear, we use metric up here in Canada. So I'm talking about Celsius. Okay, so let's go ahead and Just 1602 is typing. Craig and Just 1602 are typing. Okay, so my job here, I want to see what happens if I throw. If doing this throws, error or rut-row, I'm just curious to know what happens if we never resume new tab loads, what the experience is. Just 1602 writes, it's minus 17 here in Quebec City with a lot of wind. Winter clothing, clearly necessary. And Craig writes, I wasn't there, but had friends there, got 50-ish centimeters of snowfall. Holy cow. That is not, that is quite a march. Okay, so in this case, we get blank. I'm curious to know whether or not we ever get like a content process crash. It doesn't look like it. We just get this broken state. So it's not amazing. What happens though if we after doing this, if we move this out, or if we also allow resume new tab loads here, what happens? Let's just figure out an answer to the counts question. It's not really a major difference in behavior. Okay. So, do we want to do something in the error case now too, or is it not important? Previously on error, new tab was still initialized. Was it? On error, it's not really initialized. Because if we scroll down, yeah, we throw here. Actually, in the event of error, in this try clause, we don't still initialize new tab activity stream. We rethrow it after logging the error on 217. So we'd never reach 221, 222. Yeah, we're in a pretty broken state if activity stream cannot be imported, instantiated, or initialized. Allowing the resumption of loads in that error state doesn't really help us much, nor does continuing to suspend them seem to harm us much. So I think I'll leave this as is for now. Okay. Submit. And part 3. No feedback on this one. Part 4. R equals me for front end code. Please could you add this to generated.txt section, this part. In theory, that's copy and paste from the actual file. Okay, can do. So I'm gonna revert those two changes, and then we're going to check out part 4. And we are going to add this to the generated.txt file. I thought I did. Browser extension need to have data content. I guess I did. I did already. Data content index. Did I miss something? It's there. It's there. Or were you meaning something? It's there. See the bottom of this Phabricator revision. Or did you mean something else? Okay. So I'm going to do that. And now I'm going to rebase, or I did rebase. I'm going to submit. Well, first of all, let me run the tests again. Test, browser, extensions, new tab, test. I believe they were XPC shell, remote renderer. We're going to test the remote renderer, make sure that's all still working. Crash. What happened? Oh, you know what? Yeah, of course it crashed. Exiting due to channel error. This is a change in components.conf. If it requires a full binary build. There's a binary change here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just push this up for review. I'm not going to do a full binary build right now. I'm going to have us move on to something else. Move on to a different problem. Rebase, address some review comments. All right. So what are some things we can do in the remaining time? I do have some reviews in my queue that I could look at. The other thing that comes to mind is there's a bunch of work related to backup that's currently underway that I could attempt to help out with. What else do I have in my to-do list here? I don't really want to try and fix this, not right now. That doesn't seem high priority. What is something I could do that's high value that I could do within the hour, or at least get started? There was... Yeah, I didn't expect... I thought there would be more to look at in those patches. Apologies. And I don't want to have to wait for a full binary build, otherwise we could continue maybe like doing stuff to them, but I didn't have a binary build ready. So we have to... I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here. So there's this project I've been tinkering with on trying to make it easier to migrate users from older computers, primarily Windows 10 users, to newer computers. And the backup mechanism has long been like a sort of a key part of that. The current backup mechanism makes it so that you can schedule periodic, like daily backups that occur in the background, and you have them on, you have scheduled backups on, you have them off, they're either encrypted or not encrypted. What we don't have is the ability to do like a one-time encrypted backup. Like if we wanted to have a tool that allows users to easily move from device to device, the backup service doesn't allow us to create like a one-time encrypted backup. You have to like enable encryption, like state, for the entire browser, and then create the backup. And so I want to see whether or not it is possible. How difficult would it be to make it so that we could have a one-time encrypted backup state? How hard would that be? So let's take a quick peek. It's been a while since I've looked at the backup code. Other teams have been working on it ever since. But let's go and take a quick peek. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've thought about backups. So the backup service is pretty intense, but here, create backup, and you supply a profile directory, and what happens is it will attempt to create the staging folder, create the archive with the encryption state. So create archive, passing in the encryption state. That is the key part here. Create archive. If you pass in an encryption state, you will encrypt the backup. If null is passed, the backup will not be encrypted. So I wonder if create archive. Where else is the encryption state used here? Oh, no. Create archive. Enc state. It's not used anywhere else in here. So I wonder if we can make it be something that can be passed in as an optional argument to create backup. Yeah, 5,000 lines of code. I do think that this could be sort of split out. There are a number of like helper classes that could probably be split out into their own files. But the backup service itself, I wonder how many lines that is. Class backup service. 606 lines. So yeah, it's still quite a few thousand lines. It's still pretty big. Yeah. All right, create backup. So we can pass in an encryption state, And that would allow us to create a one-time encrypted backup. Great. Now, how can we create that encryption state outside of enabling encryption? So right now, if you supply a passphrase or a password recovery code, whatever, we will create an encryption state and then set it here, and then we will write it. So archive encryption state initialize. We can probably do this fairly easily. Archive encryption state by having whoever's calling into us pull one of these in and create a temporary archive encryption state. You initialize it, and then you pass that in as an argument to create backup. So what we'll do is say like enc state equals this dot enc state. Param archive encryption state or null. Options. Oh, I think I'm getting a tea delivery. Thank you very much. Incredible. Smells good. Tasty. Options.encstate equals what I'll say is callers can supply an override to the current encryption state if they, for example, want to create a one-off encrypted backup with a different passphrase, or want to create a backup without encryption when encryption is still enabled. When not supplied, because if it's null, how do you So here's what I'll do. When undefined, this will use the default, the current default encryption state. When null, this will create the backup without encryption. And then if enc state equals undefined, enc state equals this dot enc state. And then we will use enc state. Create populate staging folder. Oh, but there's more to it, because create and populate staging folder is going to also check what the current encryption state is, isn't it? Yeah. Load encryption state. that's an oopsie. Misspelling there. Param archive encryption state or null or undefined. To do document, and then if enc state equals undefined, else lazy log console using enc state param That's what we want to do. Encryption state. Create backup. Okay. So I think now you can pass the encryption state into create and populate staging folder. That's probably nice too, because we shouldn't have to like do that again. Because create and load was being called from here, and enc state will create. Hold up. Create and load, create and populate staging folder. Profile path. Populate staging folder. Equals await load encryption state profile path. Right. Step. I wonder if we might need to modify that a little bit. But okay, now if I build and run the backup tests, let's see whether or not this change in signature is going to blow a bunch of stuff up. start with the XPC shell tests. What's going on here? What's this one taking forever? Test backup service telemetry. It's interesting. Was that always broken, or did I just break that? Let's create a temporary commit and we'll move back. Wow, what's going on here? Okay. Why am I having to import this? Import archive encryption state. I don't remember doing this part, line 22. I'm going to remove that. Yeah, it's being brought in lazily here, so I don't know why that was being added. My editor being trying to be helpful. Okay. Whip. Try to make it possible to create to pass in enc state to create backup. Okay, and then new. Oh, and we're gonna rebase that TZYR on top of main. And let's also check out main. Let's rebuild, and then we'll run that test again to see if it's actually my problem or if that test is just busted right now. Okay. Run it. Run it. So maybe I did introduce a problem here. Okay. TZYR. Build again. And then we will see where this test is hanging. Interesting, interesting. Okay, so we're stuck in this test. Telemetry, and which part of it? There's one task. There's several tasks in here. I don't know which one we're in. Let's see if this is the one that we're stuck in. No. Is it this one? No. So it must be this one. What? Did I miss one? Oh yeah, there are a bunch of tasks up here. Okay. Let's do the first one. Still good. Let's do this one. Ah, okay, we're broken here. Test created encrypted no reason using template. I don't know what this means. Template. Test created encrypted no reason. So we're passing true for encrypted. If encrypted, enable encryption. Request a lock. Create backup. Let us add a... Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do only, and we're going to debug. Okay. Whoop. Inspect. And we're going to set our breakpoint here. Okay, we have our backup dir. We're going to enable encryption. Okay. Stub some stuff out. We're going to get a lock, get our lock, and we're going to do create backup. Enc state is undefined. We're going to try and load the encryption state. We load the encryption state. Okay. We're going to wait for writing the backup. Okay. Create and populate staging folder with the enc state here. Current step. Make directory. If enc step is undefined, otherwise use that. Backup encryption is enabled as true. And now we go through each of these. Let's see, can we get past that? Yeah. Create the manifest, writing the manifest, finalize the staging folder. We get out of here. Okay. Compress the staging folder, create the archive. Ooh, and then here we go, create the archive. Yes, create archive with enc state, the worker. And then do we get out of there? That all looks good. So what happened? We record a bunch of telemetry and we get out. We're done. Job's done. Oh. Started events is null. Can't started events. So we're failing out because of this? Because started events is null? Let's verify that. If not started events, assert okay, false, rut row. Oh, no, with the debugger. Okay, so that's the problem. Started events is null. So for some reason, we're not calling backup start dot record, even though we definitely did that. Backup start. What in tarnation? This makes no sense. So if I, right now, go glean, browser, backup, backup, start, test, get value, I get something. Okay. So now if I go back to the test here, wait. Why didn't I hit my breakpoint here? Come on. Why didn't I hit my breakpoint? Okay, continue. Hit my breakpoint. Okay, so I'm on this breakpoint now. I didn't hit the debugger, but all right. Let us now break here. Okay, so if I go glean, browser backup, backup start, get test, get value, it's null. What? Oh, because it's still pending. The promise is still pending. Don't await on it since create backup needs the lock. Oh. Deadlock. I know what's happening. I know what's happening. The expectation was this. Here. This is the expectation. That before I await, before we return back to the event loop, that this would have been recorded. Okay, let's see if this fixes it. Yes, okay, so then we can get rid of the only. Great, and now we run the entire directory. Good. So what we've got here is a patch that makes it so that the caller of create and populate staging folder, which does that need to be public? Is anyone else calling that? The selectable profile service is. Okay. Whenever we okay, to copy. And if the enc state doesn't exist, we'll load it from the profile path. Current step. Okay, that should all still work, I think. So now what I want to do is I want to add a test. Backup service. Enable, disable encryption. I'm going to use this same one. Test. Enable encryption. I'm going to use this as a template. I'll probably simplify it a little bit. Test that if encryption is enabled, that we can call backup service.create backup using an alternative encryption state, archive encryption state. If we'd like. Test alternative archive encryption state. State should initially indicate that encryption is disabled. Test alternative. Should not find an encryption state. Now enable encryption. Test password. Encryption's enabled. Encryption state should exist. Okay. And then okay, hold on a second. Test password. That's fine. We're going to create a backup. We're going to create a let alternative enc state equal initialize, and instead of test password alt, we'll use test password alt. Sure. Test password alt. Oh, sorry, it's the other way around. Instance. And we're going to want to bring in archive encryption state. State. And then we should attempt to decrypt the backup. There's a way to sample archive path. It's not quite sampling the archive. I want to try and extract compressed snapshot from archive from the archive path. State file should exist. create back. Does create backup give us create backup? Returns the result. Create backup result is manifest in the archive path. Yeah, that's what we want. Let create archive path just archive path equal create backup assert okay await IOUtils exists archive path archive was created. Let's just make sure that this one works so far. Enable, disable encryption. Good, okay. Archive encrypted, archive was created. And then we are going to, this should fail. We want to ensure that extract compressed snapshot from archive unauthorized. Archive path, extraction, dest path. So bs.extract, this should fail if we supply archive path, extraction dest path will be test profile path. And then the recovery code is test password. We should make sure that this fails. A recovery code is required, so this should throw. So try catch e assert okay false should have failed to decrypt backup with test password. Catch assert okay e dot backup error. E dot cause equal and then there is errors from backup constants. Is that something that I think head might have constants? No? That's crazy. Constants. Backup. Constants. Under tests. Wow, we really just don't bring them in. Okay, well, we'll do that here. Const errors. Say that this should fail because it should be equal to errors unauthorized. Test password failed to decrypt the backup. Okay, so let's test. Good. And then this one should pass. Assert test password alt. using test password alt, however, should work. Trying to decrypt with test password, which is the default, which is the password we set up with the service, should actually fail because the encryption state we passed to create backup, archive encryption state, passed to create backup should only decrypt with test password alt. Using test should work to decrypt the backup. Extract. So this should, whenever we succeed, should resolve with undefined. Right. So. Return 0. Could not. Oh, because the directory is not empty. Okay, yeah. Maybe compress snapshot is not the right one that I want. Recover from backup archive is maybe what I want. Not quite, I guess. Extract, compressed. Extraction path. We should do maybe remove. Maybe remove path. Could not remove. Directory is not empty. Do a quick check to make sure that the manifest.json was extracted. Maybe we'll do that. Assert, okay. Await IOUtils exists. Path utils.join. You know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to supply an extraction path. Extraction path. Extractions match. Extraction path. Test profile path. Extraction path, and then manifest.json. Manifest file name. Backup service.manifest file name. Yeah. Found the backup manifest. Does that work? No, Do not find the backup manifest. What's there? If I don't do this, what's in the path? Removed on attempt 1. Await new promise, resolve, set timeout, resolve, 50,000, dump, path, extraction path. All right. Right. I need to do this first. Okay. Path is here. Let's take a quick peek. Not a directory. Oh, right. It's a zip file. Right. Well, that's okay. I don't need to check that the manifest exists. I need to check that the extraction exists. Found the extracted archive. Archive was extracted. The extraction path is under the test profile path, which we will then clear out. Okay. Good. Now run the whole thing. Okay, now run the whole suite of tests. Looking good. Let's run the browser Chrome Oki test just to be super safe. Okay, feeling pretty good about that. Now there are some marionette tests. I am curious to know if these will run. These are always a little flaky. Let's see. Okay, seems to be working. Okay. Testing a bunch of different variations. Wow, there's a lot of these tests. Step 7. Step 1, selectable to selectable. And then what's this one? Backup to legacy. Passed. Setting up test environment. Backup to selectable, V1. Oh, I see. Right. For every time we well, incredible. That all passed. So I'm pretty happy about this. I have a test. I have some alterations. I do need to fill in, I think there's a to do. Did I add a to do here? Yeah, to do. here. So if supplied overrides the default, the archive encryption state that the backup service uses by default with one supplied by the caller. If this is null, this means that the backup will not be encrypted. If this is undefined, this will fall back to using the archive encryption state that backup service uses by default. All right, let's take a look. Got our test. I'm going to squash that in. I think I'm going to turn this into a patch. Let me file a bug. Backup. Make it possible for create backup to be called with an alternative archive encryption state. Maybe for backups to be created with an alternative encryption state. This is, I guess, an enhancement. For the Windows 10 migration initiative, there may be cases where we want to be able to create an encrypted backup of all profile data without necessarily having the backup service retain a notion of being in the encryption state. For example, we may want to be able to create a one-time encrypted backup without either writing the encryption state to disk or having the backup service be in the be in the encrypted state. I guess those are the same things. Instead, the caller of create backup is responsible for managing the archive encryption state. Okay. And I will post this patch, and then we will call it there. Hey, we got something interesting done. Describe TZYR bug such and such. Make it possible to pass in angst in an alternative archive encryption state to create backup reviewers. This is helpful in cases where we want to create an encrypted backup regardless of whether or not backup service is configured to encrypt backups at a global level. This could similarly be used by callers to create an unencrypted backup, even if I guess this part's not necessary to include. submit for review. And with that, I think I'm going to call it here. Hey, thank you so much for watching episode 433 of The Joy of Coding. Let me know what you thought. Let me put this bug in here, actually, in case you want to follow along. Let me know what you thought. There's a link in the agenda to rate this episode. I'll also drop that link into the chat. Link to rate this episode. I read everything that comes in. I read all of the questions and comments, and if there's a question, I will try and answer it on the stream. Let me know what you thought. Maybe you've got curiosity about backups or some of the latest goings on in Firefox land. Maybe you want to know more about the smart window stuff that's going on. You know, maybe you've caught wind of that, or maybe you're interested in, who knows what you're interested in. Feel free to ask me questions. I'll do my best to try and answer them. And with that, we'll call it there. Thanks again, everyone, for watching episode 433. I will see you next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.